Have you ever felt like you're stuck on a treadmill, running as fast as you can but going nowhere? There's a profound, quiet desperation in that feeling. You wake up, you follow the script, you work hard, you try to be a good person, but somehow you keep tripping over the same invisible wires, fighting the same exhausting battles, and being haunted by the same old ghosts. It's a frustrating, circular journey that can make you question the very point of all the effort. There's a book, a landmark work, that has quietly guided millions for nearly half a century, that offers a stark and powerful explanation for this phenomenon. It suggests that the root of this endless repetition, this feeling of being fundamentally stuck, points to a single, deeply uncomfortable word: immaturity. Now, this isn't about being childish or throwing tantrums. It's a far deeper concept. It refers to a lack of developed mental and spiritual muscle. The book proposes that the path out of this frustrating loop, the journey toward a life of genuine meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, is built on two foundational pillars. They are words we hear constantly, words that have become almost cliché, but which we rarely understand in their deepest, most demanding sense: discipline and love. This journey is not for the faint of heart. In fact, the book's title calls it "The Road Less Traveled" for a very specific reason. It's a path that requires you to walk directly against the pull of your own nature, but it promises a reward that is worth every difficult step: a true, functional, and deeply satisfying understanding of what it means to be a fully developed human being. Let's begin with discipline, a word that for many conjures images of harsh punishment, joyless self-denial, and a life drained of all spontaneity. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. True discipline isn't about making yourself miserable. It is a set of tools, a system for solving life's problems. It is the conscious, deliberate choice to face challenges with a positive and proactive attitude, rather than passively hoping they will just disappear. The first and most fundamental of these tools, the gateway to all other forms of discipline, is the ability to delay gratification. This is the simple, yet profound practice of scheduling the pain and pleasure in your life in such a way as to enhance the pleasure by first experiencing the pain and getting it over with. It's about choosing to eat the vegetable before the dessert. The book provides a devastatingly clear example of this principle in action. It tells the story of a high-level executive, a man who, on the surface, appeared to have it all: the salary, the title, the respect. Yet his professional and personal life was slowly, inexorably unraveling. The author traces this man's downfall back to a simple, seemingly trivial habit that revealed a deep character flaw. When served a piece of cake, he would always, without fail, eat the sweet, sugary frosting first. He simply could not stand the tension of saving the best part for last. This small act was a perfect microcosm of his entire approach to life. He applied the same frosting-first logic to his work. He would arrive at his desk and immediately tackle the easy, enjoyable tasks, the pleasant phone calls, the simple memos. Meanwhile, the difficult, complex, and crucially important projects would be pushed to the side, forming a growing pile of dread on the corner of his desk. His inability to endure the temporary discomfort of difficult work for the far greater, more lasting reward of success and accomplishment led to a complete and utter collapse of his career and his self-respect. This single story illuminates a feeling we all know intimately in the modern world. It is the precise reason why scrolling through your phone for an hour instead of tackling that one important email doesn't leave you feeling happy or rested. It leaves you with a gnawing, low-grade anxiety, a deeper sense of emptiness. You've chosen the fleeting, sugary pleasure of distraction over the lasting, nourishing satisfaction of accomplishment. You've eaten the frosting first, and now all that's left is the dry, unappetizing cake of your responsibilities. This principle leads directly to the second, and perhaps the most difficult, pillar of discipline: taking full and complete responsibility for your own life. This is the point where many of us stumble. The book draws a crystal clear line between two common ways people fail to do this, creating a spectrum of blame. On one extreme, you have what psychology calls neurosis. The neurotic individual assumes far too much responsibility. They operate from the core belief that everything that goes wrong is, at its heart, their fault. They are the chronic apologizers, living in a constant, suffocating state of self-blame, guilt, and inadequacy. They are crushed under the weight of a world they believe they are personally failing. On the opposite extreme, you have what are known as character disorders. The person with a character disorder refuses to accept almost any responsibility at all. For them, every problem, every failure, every bit of pain is caused by something or someone else: their spouse, their boss, their parents, the government, the world. They see themselves as perpetual victims, living in a state of righteous anger and bitter resentment. Their world is a hostile place, and none of it is their fault. Most of us don't live at these extreme poles, but we constantly fluctuate somewhere between them. We feel the cold, heavy pull of neurotic guilt when we blame ourselves for things beyond our control, and the hot, searing sting of character-disordered anger when we blame others for our own shortcomings. The book tells the unforgettable story of a woman who, after a minor car accident, developed a paralyzing fear of driving. Her concerned husband bought her a brand new, safer car to help her regain her confidence. But there was a problem. The car had a manual transmission, and she only knew how to drive an automatic. She refused to even try to learn. She demanded that her husband trade in the new car for an automatic. When he, reasonably, refused to do so, she made a drastic decision. She simply stopped driving altogether. For years, she forced her husband to become her personal chauffeur, driving her everywhere she needed to go. In her own mind, she was the victim. She was a poor, frightened woman being tormented by an insensitive and stubborn husband. But the reality was starkly different. She was unwilling to take responsibility for her own healing. She was unwilling to face the discomfort and frustration of learning a new, difficult skill. She chose to cripple her own freedom and place an enormous burden on her marriage, rather than do the hard work of personal growth. But this story raises a critical, even more fundamental question. How can we possibly take responsibility for our reality if we refuse to even see reality as it truly is? This brings us to the third, essential element of discipline: an unwavering dedication to the truth. This means we must be loyal to the facts of the world as it exists, not to the old, outdated, and often broken maps of the world that we carry around in our heads. We all have these maps. They are our internal pictures of how the world works, how people behave, what to expect from life. These maps are drawn for us in childhood. The hand that draws them might be the steady hand of a loving, consistent parent, creating a map that is reliable and clear. Or it might be the shaky, unpredictable hand of an unreliable parent, creating a map full of distortions, dead ends, and imaginary monsters. The problem is, the world is constantly changing, and we are constantly changing. If we don't continuously and painfully update our maps, we will inevitably get lost. The psychological phenomenon of transference is a perfect example of navigating with an old map. It is our unconscious tendency to transfer feelings, fears, and expectations from our past relationships, particularly with our parents, onto the people in our present. The author describes a man in his late 20s who came to therapy consumed by an intense, painful loneliness. Yet, he found it utterly impossible to trust anyone enough to form a close bond. His internal map, drawn in a childhood, with parents who were emotionally inconsistent and frequently broke their promises, was covered with a single, bold warning. People are not to be trusted. They will always abandon you. As an adult, he unconsciously lived by this map. He would either be drawn to partners who were, in fact, unreliable, thus confirming his map's accuracy, or, more tragically, when he met someone who was genuinely kind and trustworthy, he would unconsciously behave in ways that would push them away. He would become suspicious, accusatory, and distant, until his partner, exhausted and hurt, would finally leave. And in that moment of abandonment, his old map would feel validated. See? It was right all along. His life's tragedy was not that the world was an untrustworthy place. It was that he was navigating his present with a dangerously inaccurate map from his past. A map that guaranteed he would always end up exactly where he most feared to be. Alone. To be healthy, to be disciplined, we must have the courage to spread our maps out on the table, and with a relentless commitment to the truth, erase the old lies and draw new, more accurate lines. This constant, difficult work of map revision brings us to the highest and most sophisticated form of discipline: balancing. Life is not a set of rigid, absolute rules. It is a complex and delicate series of balancing acts. The book compares it to riding a bicycle down a steep hill. To enjoy the thrilling ride, you need speed and momentum. But to safely navigate the sharp turns and unexpected obstacles, you must know precisely when and how hard to gently apply the brakes. A life of discipline is not about absolute rigidity. It is about wise flexibility. To delay all gratification forever is to lead a sterile, unlived life. To take responsibility for things that are completely outside of your control, like the weather or the choices of other adults, is a form of madness. Even telling the truth, if done without compassion and wisdom, can become a weapon of cruelty. Balancing is the exquisite judgment required to know when to push forward and when to yield, when to speak your truth and when to hold your peace, when to hold on tightly and when to let go. The great psychologist Erik Erikson theorized that a mature life is, in essence, a process of gracefully giving up things at the right time. As toddlers, we must give up the fantasy of our own omnipotence. As adolescents, we must give up the absolute security and dependence of our parents' home. As young adults, we must give up the dream of a life without pain or conflict. As we age, we must give up our youthful energy, our physical beauty, and eventually, we must come to terms with giving up life itself. True discipline, in its highest form of balancing, gives us the wisdom and strength to navigate these necessary losses, not with bitter despair, but with grace and acceptance. When you weave these four principles together, delaying gratification, accepting responsibility, dedicating yourself to truth, and maintaining balance, they form a powerful, creative internal force. According to the second law of thermodynamics, the universe naturally tends toward chaos and disorder. This is the principle of entropy. If you leave a meticulously planted garden untended, it will not stay beautiful. It will be overrun by weeds, pests, and decay. If you leave a clean, orderly house unmaintained, it will not stay clean. It will fill with dust, clutter, and grime. Human life and the human psyche are no different. Left to their own devices, our lives tend to become messy, chaotic, and disorganized. Discipline is the anti-entropic force we apply to counteract this natural tendency. It is the conscious, active, and often difficult effort we make to create order, meaning, and purpose out of the raw, chaotic material of our existence. But this raises a profound and vital question. Is this force, this discipline, on its own, enough to build a truly mature and fulfilling life? What happens if this relentless effort is not guided by a higher purpose? What if our discipline becomes a cold, mechanical, self-serving quest for perfection, alienated from all human connection? This is where the second, and arguably more important, pillar of a mature life becomes absolutely essential: love. The book offers one of the most rigorous, unsentimental, and powerful definitions of love you will ever encounter. It immediately sweeps away all the greeting card platitudes and Hollywood fantasies. Love, it argues, is not what we think it is. It is not a feeling. It is not a magical state of bliss that happens to us. The book defines love with the precision of a surgeon. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Let's dissect that, because every word is critical. The key word is will. This means love is a choice. It is an intention. It is an action that requires conscious effort, not a passive feeling that washes over us. To extend oneself means to move beyond our current comfort zone, to stretch the boundaries of our own ego, to risk and to grow. And its purpose is singular and profound: spiritual growth. True love is not about making someone feel good in the moment. It is about actively, intentionally working to help ourselves and our loved ones become better, more complete, more evolved human beings. This demanding definition forces us to look squarely at the many things we commonly call love that are, in fact, sophisticated counterfeits. The book systematically dismantles these imposters, one by one. The first is dependency. Many people who fervently believe they are in love are actually just desperately seeking a person to take care of them, to meet all the emotional and practical needs they are unwilling or unable to meet for themselves. This isn't love. It is a form of psychological parasitism. The book gives this condition a clinical name: passive dependent personality disorder. These individuals are not interested in their partner's growth. They are interested only in what their partner can provide for them. They are consumed by a terror of being alone, of being abandoned, because they feel fundamentally incapable of navigating the world on their own. Their desperate cry of "I can't live without you" is not a declaration of love, but a statement of fact about their own perceived inadequacy. The second, and perhaps most powerful and seductive impostor, is the ecstatic feeling of falling in love. Our entire culture is obsessed with this experience. It is the engine of our songs, our movies, our novels. It is held up as the ultimate peak of human connection. But from a cold, hard, psychological perspective, falling in love is a beautiful, temporary trick. It's a hormonally driven, genetically programmed illusion designed to get two people to overcome their natural barriers to intimacy long enough to pair up and, potentially, procreate. During this phase, there is a temporary and partial collapse of our ego boundaries. For a brief, intoxicating period, the walls that separate me from you seem to dissolve, and we feel a blissful, oceanic sense of union with another person. This experience is not real love. It is a biological mirage. And because it is an illusion, it is always, without exception, temporary. This is why, after the initial, breathtaking infatuation inevitably fades, so many couples are left with a profound and bitter sense of disillusionment, asking themselves, "What happened? This isn't the person I fell in love with. The person didn't change. The illusion simply ended." Real, lasting love is not the falling. It is what you consciously choose to build together after you have landed. The deception continues with other, more subtle forms of counterfeit love. The third imposter is something the book calls cathexis, which is the simple act of investing our mental and emotional energy in a person or object. While this is a necessary component of love, it is not love itself. You can cathect your new car, your favorite sports team, or a piece of art. The book points out that our intense love for pets, or even for human infants, or a very submissive, unchallenging partner, can sometimes be a form of this counterfeit love. We love them because they are completely dependent on us. They adore us uncritically, and they offer no challenge to our ego or our worldview. They fulfill our need to feel important, powerful, and in control. This is not the love that fosters spiritual growth. It is love that serves and reinforces the ego. The fourth, and arguably the most insidious and destructive counterfeit, is self-sacrifice. Many people are raised to believe that the ultimate proof of love is to sacrifice themselves completely for another. They give up their hobbies, their dreams, their needs, and sometimes their very identity, all in the name of loving their partner or their children. The book argues that this is very often not love, but a form of masochism in disguise. These martyrs are not actually nurturing the other person's growth. In fact, they are often crippling it. Their constant, ostentatious sacrifice becomes a form of subtle control and emotional blackmail. Every selfless act comes with an invisible price tag, creating a mountain of unspoken debt. It is a way of saying, "Look at everything I've done for you. Look how I've suffered for you. You owe me. You must not leave me. You must not disappoint me." This doesn't build the other person up. It smothers them with guilt and resentment. True love is not about erasing yourself. It is about being a whole, strong, separate person who is committed to helping another person become whole and strong too. So, if all these powerful common experiences, dependency, infatuation, control, and martyrdom, are not real love, what does genuine love actually look like in practice? The first and most fundamental action of real love is listening. Not just passively hearing the words someone is saying while you formulate your own response, but truly, deeply, actively listening. This means temporarily setting aside your own thoughts, your own ego, your own biases, and your own desire to fix the problem in order to fully enter the world of another person. It requires intense concentration and a genuine selfless desire to understand their reality. Most of what passes for listening in our daily lives is simply a polite pause in the conversation while we wait for our turn to talk. True listening is an act of profound validation. It is the most powerful way of communicating to another person. You matter. Your experience is real and important to me. It is the absolute bedrock upon which all genuine connection is built. The second core expression of real love is risk. To love is to risk. When you make a genuine commitment to another person, you risk rejection. When you invest your heart in them, you risk the devastating pain of loss, because the person you love may leave you, or change, or die. And most importantly, to truly love someone, you must risk confrontation. Love is not about maintaining a state of perpetual, superficial peace. In fact, a relationship with no conflict is often a sign that one or both partners are not being honest, that they are hiding their true selves to avoid a fight. To love someone means caring enough about their spiritual growth to challenge them when they are behaving in a self-destructive way. It means having the courage to say the difficult, painful things that need to be said, not out of anger, but out of a deep commitment to their well-being. To avoid this risk, to choose peace at any price, is not an act of love. It is an act of cowardice. The third, and perhaps the most challenging and profound, expression of love is the fostering of independence. True love requires and promotes separateness. The goal of love is not for two people to pathologically merge into a single, codependent entity. The goal is for two strong, whole, separate individuals to stand side by side, supporting each other's unique and independent journey of growth. The book gives a chilling and unforgettable example of the opposite: a mother with a severe narcissistic personality. She was utterly incapable of seeing her daughter as a separate human being with her own thoughts, feelings, and destiny. To her, the daughter was merely an extension of herself, an object whose purpose was to fulfill the mother's own unmet needs and ambitions. She dictated her daughter's friends, her clothes, her career choices, crushing any flicker of independence with a torrent of guilt and emotional manipulation disguised as motherly love. When the daughter, as a young adult, finally made a desperate attempt to assert her own identity, the mother's love instantly turned to vengeful rage. This is the ultimate violation of love. Love is not possession. Love is the ultimate respect for the other's separateness, the ultimate celebration of their unique identity. This entire arduous journey of discipline and love forces us to confront the deepest, most primal force within the human psyche. The book offers a unique and startling psychological interpretation of the theological concept of original sin. It argues that the fundamental flaw of humanity, the source of all our neuroses and character disorders, is not pride or greed or lust, but something much simpler and more pervasive: laziness. This is not the laziness of resting on a Sunday afternoon. It is a deep, existential laziness. It is the force within us that resists the effort required to grow. From a psychodynamic perspective, this primal laziness is rooted in fear. We are afraid of the pain and effort required to face and solve our problems. We are afraid of the difficult work of constantly updating our maps of reality. We are afraid of the risks of true love. But deepest of all, we are afraid that even if we put in all the effort, we might still fail. And so, to avoid the potential pain and humiliation of failure, we choose not to truly try in the first place. This is the ultimate laziness. It is the insidious whispering voice in the back of our minds that says, "Don't bother. It's too hard. Just stay where you are. It's safer here." The book boldly reinterprets the biblical story of Adam and Eve through this very lens. Their fall from grace wasn't simply an act of disobedience against a divine rule. It was an act of intellectual and spiritual laziness. When confronted by God about their transgression, they had a choice. They could have engaged in the painful, difficult work of self-reflection, taken responsibility, and sought understanding. Instead, they took the easy way out. They lied and they blamed. Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent. They were too lazy and too afraid to do the hard work of seeking the truth. In this powerful view, discipline and love are not just psychological tools for a better life. They are the sacred, divine, anti-entropic actions we take to fight back against this primal laziness, this entropy of the human soul. And so we arrive back at the beginning, at the image of the road. The path of discipline and love is the road less traveled, precisely because it requires us to constantly, consciously push against the most powerful currents of our own nature. It is always easier to eat the frosting first. It is always easier to blame someone else. It is always easier to cling to our old, comfortable maps of the world, even when they are leading us directly into a ditch. It is always easier to mistake the desperate grip of dependency for devotion, and the fleeting high of infatuation for a lifetime of love. It is, in short, always easier to be lazy. This is why so few people truly undertake this journey in earnest. The book doesn't promise a quick fix, a secret technique, or a life free from pain. It does the opposite. It promises that the journey is difficult, and that pain is an inevitable and necessary part of it. But it also makes a more profound promise. It suggests that by embracing the necessary and legitimate suffering that comes with solving our problems, we can ultimately transcend it. By committing to the hard work of discipline and the even harder work of love, we begin to align ourselves with the very forces of growth and evolution in the universe. This path of continuous learning, courageous self-examination, and compassionate connection ultimately develops within us a kind of spiritual power. It is a power that, over a lifetime of practice, allows us to become true experts in the art of living. It leads not to a place of arrogant certainty or blissful ignorance, but to a state of profound, humble, and deeply joyful competence in navigating the beautiful, terrifying, and sacred journey of human existence.